I was recently given the pleasure of seeing all of the Alpha Foxtrot products in Duluth, Georgia. I was able to view the lineup of Alpha Foxtrot pistols and long guns, and thanks to an in-facility range, shoot several of the pistols, one of which was the AF1911 DLC in 10mm. After shooting this pistol, I held it in my hand, paused, and while gazing at it, exclaimed that this was the finest 10mm pistol that I have ever fired, and that was no exaggeration. My wish for more time with the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 DLC in 10mm, and thanks to Alpha Foxtrot and Hilltop Pawn in Snellville, Georgia, that wish became a reality. So, here is my journey with the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 DLC. I fervently hope that you will continue with me. Let's get this review started with some basic specifications. The model is the AF1911 polished DLC that is chambered in 10mm auto. The total overall length is 8.625 inches. The total overall width, as measured at the ambidextrous thumb safety, is 1.461 inches. The total overall height is 5.737 inches with magazine installed. Magazine capacity is at 9 cartridges, which provides a 9+1 initial round count. The unloaded weight with magazine is 2 pounds 9.5 ounces. With a loaded magazine, the weight rounds out at 2 pounds 14.3 ounces. The AF1911 polished DLC has a forged 416R stainless slide, barrel, and frame. The diamond-like coating, or DLC, provides maximum protection and a few more things that I will talk about in the features segment. The AF1911 polished DLC is manufactured in the US of A, in Duluth, Georgia, as a matter of fact. Any advanced specifications I will save as part of the features segment. There are many features associated with the AF1911 polished DLC that I need to cover. Let me begin with the appeal of this pistol. The first appeal is that it is a 1911-based pistol that, for many, is the embodiment of a true defensive handgun. The 1911 has been proven worthy of service for more years than I have on this earth, for military, law enforcement, and civilians, good and bad. Modern materials, enhancements, and manufacturing have brought this old warhorse to the peak of its existence, with no signs of slowing down. The AF1911 polished DLC is a fine example of just how far the 1911 has come. A slim design that feels natural in the hand, has excellent point and shoot capabilities, builds confidence in the operator's mind that it will handle any situation presented to it, without fail. The second appeal is with the cartridge that it chambers. In this case, that is the 10mm auto, a powerful cartridge that rivals and sometimes exceeds the renowned 357 Magnum in performance. Like the 357 Magnum, the 10mm auto was also adopted by law enforcement to stop dangerous criminals, but in this case, after initial development, it basically sat on the sidelines. After a violent and tragic engagement between FBI agents and bank robbers, the cartridge was given new attention and adopted by federal agencies. Now, the 357 Magnum is a powerful cartridge, but in this case, it takes a narrow second place to the 10mm auto. 10mm generally packs higher muzzle energies, thanks in large part to larger bullets. Even with similar bullets, however, it appears the 10mm does slightly better. So, with that in mind, let's take a closer look at the AF1911 polished DLC pistol in 10mm auto chambering. Aside from reliability, the capability to stop a threat, and accuracy, the means to hit a target, is pretty important. After all, you can't stop a threat unless you can hit it. A set of good sights is important, and the AF1911 polished DLC has a good set of sights. The green dots of the front and rear sight provide a pleasing yet effective means to sight the pistol. Green is an excellent color for most eyes to pick up, even those who have deuteranomaly, which is the most common type of red-green color blindness that makes green look more red. This type of color blindness is mild and doesn't usually get in the way of normal activities. The front sight is ramped and drift adjustable for windage. The ramped rear sight is screw adjustable for elevation and is drift adjustable for windage, after loosening two small set screws that help to lock the rear sight into place. The elevation adjustable rear sight allows for precise dialing in of cartridges with different bullet weights, with 180 grain and 200 grain being the most common 10mm bullet weights. The sights are mounted to a highly polished DLC-coated stainless steel slide assembly that has many unique features of its own. The first thing that you might notice are the front and rear grooves milled into the slide. While not conventional in appearance, they are highly effective. Running the fingers from the rear to the front, the grooves are very smooth, and the fingers just run right over top of them. Running the fingers from the front to the rear, however, is a whole new feeling. The grooves just dig into the fingers and provide a very substantial gripping surface for pushing or pulling the slide to the rear for press checking, locking the slide to the rear, or slingshotting the slide to chamber a cartridge. The slide is highly polished, but not highly polished. While very attractive, the slide will pick up fingerprints, smudges, and grease from Slim Jim snacks very easily. I prefer a matte finish personally, but also favor a polished or brushed stainless steel finish, especially in the South where I reside, where humidity in the hot summer months will take your breath away at times, and which means that metal needs as much protection as possible to prevent corrosion. Between the DLC coating and the stainless steel of the slide, this pistol is well protected. Components not receiving the DLC finish have the nitride finish that provides enhanced corrosion resistance, greatly improved wear resistance, decreased surface roughness, reduced light reflection, and increased surface lubricity. The slide, as usual, houses the barrel, the guide rod and recoil spring, firing pin spring, and firing pin retention plate, and an internal extractor. The barrel is of the 5-inch flavoring, which makes it of the government length according to standards. Working end is nicely crowned for maximum damage control and accuracy. The barrel also receives the NDC treatment. The barrel is of the John Moses Browning swing link design with a substantial locking block to withstand the energy of the 10mm cartridge. The muzzle end of the barrel is of the bull barrel design, in that no barrel bushing is used. At the rear of the chamber, you will find an inspection port for determining if a cartridge is chambered, or not. The feed ramp of the barrel is not polished, but with a DLC-coated barrel, no polishing is really needed, since DLC is touted to be of high lubricity, which means that it is slicker than bird snot on a wet day. And yes, lubricity is a real word. Look it up if you don't believe me. The AF1911 polished DLC utilizes a 3-piece guide rod system that some rail against and some praise. I have personally experienced the smoothness and relative accuracy increase that an FLGR can provide, and I have several 1911 pistols that came with them installed, and one 1911 in which a FLGR was installed by me. Ruger SR 1911 Lightweight Commander, of which I have produced a video review. The DLC finish guide rod requires a 5/32 hex wrench to disassemble and assemble, and I will talk about that in the maintenance segment of this review. Since no barrel bushing is used, retention of the guide rod assembly is accomplished by a guide rod collar that is inserted into the slide. The guide rod collar is keyed for proper insertion into the slide. Here you will note the impeccable machine work on the slide assembly. If there are machining marks, I certainly cannot see them, even with a magnified lens. The AF1911, all AF1911 pistols, are built to the 70 series of 1911s. With the 70 series pistol, the pistol fires as soon as the sear clears the cocking notch of the hammer. In some cases, especially with pistols that exhibited a very light trigger pull, a discharge of the pistol could happen when not planned. The 80 series 1911 ushered in a, quote, safer, end quote, 1911 in that the trigger had to be pulled completely to the rear and not partially for the pistol to fire. This was accomplished by adding a firing pin block that could only be moved out of the way by the aforementioned trigger press. The firing pin block was disengaged by a lever within the frame that moves upward when the trigger is pressed. The upward motion of the lever pushes a spring-loaded firing pin block within the slide that moves out of the way of the firing pin when a certain point in the trigger pull is reached. Looking at the slide of the AF1911, you can see that no hammer block exists. The hammer block, or lack of, can be seen with the slide fully to the rear and locked into place. So, if you want to know if a 1911 is a Series 70 or Series 80 when you are considering purchasing one, and want to dazzle the salesperson with your knowledge and brilliance, lock the slide back to the rear, flip that puppy over, and look for the existence of a hammer block. If one is present, you are looking at a Series 80 1911. Otherwise, it is a Series 70. I am not going to go into which is better, Series 70 or Series 80. Suffice it to say that the most experienced 1911 operators prefer the Series 70 over the Series 80. Where was I? Oh yeah, the slide. The ejection port has been flared and lowered to ensure those expended cartridges clear well of the pistol when ejected, but first they must be extracted, and that job lies to the internal extractor. That, unlike some Gen Z office workers, performs its job function without a murmur. The slide and frame are hand-lapped to provide the tightest clearance possible. If you have ever hand-lapped the valves on a Harley-Davidson engine, or other engine, you know what goes into hand-lapping. Coupled with the DLC finish and FLGR, the slide is very smooth in its operation. I will say that the slide pull weight is not for those of weak hand strength. A substantial recoil spring, necessary for the 10mm auto round, makes pulling or pushing the slide to the rear a bit of an effort. While you may not notice the recoil spring rate when pulling the slide slightly to the rear when locked to release the slide when chambering a round, you will notice it when field stripping the pistol for maintenance and assembling the pistol after maintenance. More on that later. Well, that does it for the slide. Let's move on to the frame. The frame, like the slide and barrel, is of forged 416R stainless steel and also receives the DLC treatment. The dust cover incorporates a mill standard 1913 rail for mounting lights, lasers, and combinations thereof. Some like rails and some do not. I am the latter, but if you do like them, you will like these. The milling of the frame, like the slide and barrel, is near perfection with no, visible to the eye, machining marks. The plunger tube housing is adequately staked to the frame, so there should be no worry about the plunger tube and related components departing the frame at any time. The ejector is properly pinned and staked into place and takes care of getting rid of spent cases nicely. The left side of the frame looks like any other 1911 frame, with a slide stop, magazine catch and release button, and thumb safety in their usual positions. It is important to note here that all components are CNC machined in-house. In other words, no MIM, metal injection molding parts, are used. Small details in manufacturing matter, like the chamfered hole for the slide lock, and that the slide lock lever is extended and serrated. The extended thumb safety is ambidextrous and snicks nicely into fire and safe positions with the thumb without effort. For some, like myself, I like the fact that the right side safety lever does not dig into my hand when I get a high grip on the firearm. The left side safety lever has enough textured surface for my thumb to rest on during firing. That helps to get the barrel back online quickly after each shot. The AF1911 has demonstrated the ability to do that, which I will talk about in the range segment. Grip handles are black and gray G10 that are mounted with standard slot screws. I would like to see torque screws used here, and if an AF1911 ever comes into my possession, these will be one of the first items changed, just as a personal preference. The grip handles are nicely textured. The surface area is kind to the hand when shooting without being overly aggressive, but you will wear the impression of the texture on your hand after firing for a bit. The grip handles do not have a relief cut for the thumb, but I don't use them anyway. But you may like them, and that's fine. The catch and release button for the magazine is left side only, is extended and serrated, and does its job well in retaining and releasing magazines. Like the last time that I enjoyed a hot tub, magazines pop right in and pop right out. Just above the extended beaver tail grip safety, which protects the hand from hammer bite, is the commander-style roiled hammer, which nestles nicely into the well of the extended beaver tail grip safety. Just below the extended beaver tail grip safety is the highly checkered 24 lines per inch DLC-coated, all-metal, flat mainspring housing. None of that polymer mainspring housing material used here. If this pistol did find its way into the fold, however, I would change it out for an arched mainspring housing, as with the 1911A1, as it simply fits my hand better than a flat mainspring housing. It's a personal thing, and your hand may favor the flat mainspring housing over the arched mainspring housing. Any old storm in a port, I always say. The magazine housing receives a slight beveled treatment that aids in inserting magazines into the magazine well much easier than a magazine well without a bevel. Moving forward to the front grip strap, you will find the same 24 lines per inch checkering that matches the mainspring housing. You will find that gripping the AF1911 is a pleasing experience for most hands. Rolling upward and forward, there is a nicely contoured trigger housing that is not undercut at the rear, but then again, an undercut is really not needed. Let's see. Oh yeah, within the trigger guard is a serrated combat-style 3-hole trigger with an over-travel adjustment screw. First of all, there is no over-travel to adjust. Now, you would think that with a high-quality pistol like the AF1911, a good trigger is within expectations. Well, you would be incorrect. It is an excellent trigger. The trigger has a good spring tension that is noticed during the free play when engaging the trigger. With the usual short free play that 1911 pistols are known for, the only flexing that I felt was with the fleshy part of my finger when it pressed against the trigger. The extremely crisp break took place at 3 pounds, 0.1 ounce with a 5-pull average. The last reading on the digital scale was 2 pounds, 3.0 ounces. I felt no grit during the trigger pull. For a non-custom 1911 build, out-of-the-box trigger, this one has been set up very well. Without some live-fire trigger time under my belt, I can only visualize the trigger getting better. But before I can take you to the range, I must take you through the maintenance of the AF1911. That includes good and not so good aspects. So, let me close this segment down and move on. Welcome to the maintenance segment of this review. You will find some challenges when performing maintenance on the 1911 in general, and the 10mm AF1911 DLC in particular. The 1911 is a platform unto its own. It is not a pistol that disassembles with a push or pull of a slide release mechanism like with a Glock, or a push of a takedown lever like a Sig Sauer or Beretta as examples. In general, disassembling and assembling a 1911 with a standard guide rod is a piece of cake as compared to doing the same with an FLGR equipped 1911. With some 1911s that have a one-piece FLGR installed, a simple bent paperclip can be used to lock the guide rod recoil spring in place while disassembling and assembling the pistol, while others can be disassembled and assembled without using a bent paperclip. With a two-piece guide rod, things get interesting, but before I can take you on this ride, safety first. Point the pistol in a safe direction with your finger off of the trigger and outside of the trigger guard. I must insert a note here. With some pistols, the pistol cannot be fired with the magazine removed. The AF1911 can fire with the magazine out of the pistol and a live round chambered. So, with that in mind, let's continue. Remove the magazine from the pistol. Don't assume that because the magazine is empty, that the pistol is not. Pointing the pistol in a safe direction, push or pull the slide completely to the rear and lock it into place with the slide lock. Any live round that was chambered should be extracted and ejected. But we want to make sure, don't we? Physically and visually inspect the chamber and magwell area for any live rounds. Remove all live ammunition from the immediate vicinity. Once you are in agreement with yourself that the pistol is empty and that no live ammunition is present, leave the slide lock back to the rear and continue to the disassembly of the pistol. For those of you who are already familiar with disassembling, cleaning, inspecting, lubricating, assembling, and function testing a 1911 pistol, feel free to jump to the next segment. However, disassembling and assembling the AF1911 is a bit different from doing so with a standard 1911, one with a standard guide rod. The AF1911 has a full-length guide rod, and this may interest you. Before I dig into this portion of the maintenance segment, I must say that the recoil spring in the 10mm version of the AF1911 is not a recoil spring for a 9mm or 45 ACP version of this pistol. The recoil spring for the 10mm pistol is stout, and like a teenage boy wearing skin-tight blue jeans, has a lot of energy when compressed. So, heed the warning that follows. Since the slide has been pulled to the rear and locked into place while performing the safety check, I can pick up where I left off to disassemble the pistol. Pull the slide fully to the rear to unlock the slide lock. Slowly ride the slide fully into battery. Leave the hammer in the cocked position. Use a 5/32 inch hex wrench to loosen the front portion of the two-piece full-length guide rod. When the pistol is new, this might take some effort, as some factory assemblers are known to tighten things, well, tight. Do not remove the front portion of the guide rod at this time. While gripping the pistol with one hand, use both hands to push and pull the slide to the rear until the disassembly notch aligns with the slide stop. Use one hand to hold the slide in place, while the forefinger of the other hand pushes the takedown pin slightly out from the right side of the frame. Gripping hand should continue holding the slide in place. Ensure that the fingers of the gripping hand are clear of the ejection port, as this is a possible pinch point. Remove the takedown pin from the frame with the support hand. Continue to hold the slide with the gripping hand. Wrap the fingers of the support hand completely around the barrel area of the pistol. The fingers should cover the barrel shroud completely. Release tension on the gripping hand while increasing tension on the support hand around the slide. Slowly allow the slide to move forward off of the frame. The support hand should capture and keep the recoil spring and guide rod from flying outward when they clear the frame. Once the slide has fully cleared the frame, continue to hold the recoil assembly in place. Use the 5/32 inch hex wrench to remove the front portion of the two-piece full-length guide rod. Once the front portion of the guide rod is removed, the remaining guide rod and recoil spring will attempt to escape the slide. Retain a tight hold on these components. Carefully remove the uncompressed recoil spring and guide rod from the slide. Push and pull the recoil spring collar to the rear of the slide and remove it. Note the orientation of the recoil spring collar. Push the barrel length forward and remove the barrel through the front of the slide. This is as far as you need to go to disassemble the pistol. At this point, I would normally steer you to the operator and safety manual, but there is no information there for you to reference. So, let me take you through the basics of cleaning and lubrication of the 1911 pistol in general. For those who already know how to do this, feel free to skip ahead. Thoroughly saturate the inside of the barrel with an approved solvent, like Hoppy's No. 9. Let it sit for a while to allow the solvent to do its thing. Use a cleaning rod to run a properly sized, solvent-wetted patch through the bore several times. Then attach a solvent-wetted bristle brush to a cleaning rod and run it back and forth the full length of the bore as many times as necessary to remove grease and dirt from the bore and chamber. This should be done from the chamber end. Clean the bore with dry patches and examine. Bore fouling can be contributed to reduced accuracy, and grease accumulation in the chamber can interfere with proper feeding of cartridges from the magazine. Using powder solvent on a clean patch or bristle brush, remove powder residue from all components of the pistol. After cleaning, run a dry patch through the bore, then follow up with a patch that is very lightly oiled. Note that you can, as I do, use a bore snake or two to accomplish the same task. Wipe all surfaces clean with a cloth, then wipe all surfaces with a patch or cloth that has been very lightly oiled. After cleaning, refer to the illustration for slide lubrication points. Spread a drop of lubricant along the slide rails. Note that the lower protruding rail, not the groove in the slide, is the feature that rides on the frame. Lubricate the recesses in the slide. Lubricate the hammer cocking surface underneath the slide. Lubricate the disconnector where it passes through the frame. Note that a light oil should be used here. Be sure to remove excess lubricants. Excessive lubrication will attract dust and dirt and may congeal in cold weather, which can interfere with the safe and reliable function of the pistol. With all this accomplished, let's gird our loins and dig into how to assemble the pistol. Assembling the 10mm AF1911, because of the full-length guide rod, can cause you to utter some expletives while assembling the pistol due to the very heavy recoil spring. Feel free to do so if it makes you feel better. The operator and safety manual simply states to assemble the pistol in the reverse order of disassembly. I don't know about you, but I can't remember all of that, and assembling the 10mm AF1911 is quite different from disassembling it. So, let me take you through it. You can thank me later. Place the swing link down against the barrel. Insert the barrel into the slide until it fully seats. Place the slide upside down on a soft surface. Insert the recoil spring collar into the front of the slide. Take note that it can be only inserted one way. Push the recoil spring and lower guide rod assembly into the recoil spring collar. Compress the recoil spring and lower guide rod until the saddle of the guide rod rests against the bottom of the barrel. You must hold it into place while you retrieve the upper portion of the guide rod. The recoil spring will try to bend and escape. Attempt to keep the recoil spring and lower guide rod in alignment. While holding the lower end of the guide rod firmly against the barrel, install the upper portion of the guide rod to the lower portion of the guide rod. Maintain constant pressure on a recoil spring and guide rod during this process. Do not tighten the upper portion of the guide rod to the lower portion at this time. While holding the recoil spring and guide rod in place, install the frame onto the slide. As the barrel shroud passes over the guide rod assembly, you will begin to feel the spring tension of the recoil spring increase. Transfer your grip on the support hand so that it grips both the slide and the frame. Note that the recoil spring is under tension and a firm grip will be required. Transfer the grip of your strong hand so that it holds the frame and slide as shown. Keep a firm grip. With the support hand, move the slide to the rear until the swing link opening can be seen in the takedown pin hole. While holding the slide and frame assemblies with the strong hand, insert the takedown pin into the takedown pin hole and through the swing link opening. You will not be able to fully insert the takedown assembly. This will only hold things into place temporarily while you give both hands a breather. There will be a lot of tension against the takedown pin. The next steps include alignment of the slide and takedown pin slot in the slide to the takedown pin assembly point. However, there is a small hurdle to overcome. That is the point at which the takedown assembly is locked into place with the slide stop plunger, which is under extreme spring tension by the plunger spring within the plunger tube. Using the strong hand, pull the slide slightly to the rear, just enough to remove some tension on the takedown pin. Rotate the takedown assembly until the rear of the takedown assembly is just touching the slide stop plunger. Push the slide lock assembly in just enough so that the inside lip of the slide lock assembly engages the slide stop plunger. You will not be able to fully insert the slide stop pin. You just want to hold it into place while you move the slide to the rear to align the takedown slot so that you can fully insert the takedown assembly. Hold the slide lock assembly in place while moving the slide to the rear. When the disassembly notch is aligned to the slide stop tab, push the slide stop fully inward. The frame and slide are now fully assembled. Cycle the slide several times to ensure proper cycling. Tighten the front portion of the guide rod. With the assembly out of the way, we can perform a function test to ensure that the pistol is operating in the manner that a 1911 should operate. Perform a function check, preferably with 3 snap caps that you can use to check hammer drop, extraction, and ejection. Insert 3 snap caps into a magazine and insert the magazine into the pistol. The slide can be in battery or not, no matter. With the thumb safety in the down position, cycle the slide to chamber the first snap cap. Place the thumb safety in the up or safe position, and while not pressing the grip safety, pull the trigger. The hammer should not fall. With the thumb safety remaining in the up, safe position, press inward on the grip safety and pull the trigger. The hammer should not fall. Place the thumb safety in the down, off safe position, and without pressing the grip safety, pull the trigger. The hammer should not fall. Press the grip safety fully inward with the thumb safety in the off safe down position, and pull the trigger. The hammer should fall and strike the base of the snap cap. With the hammer fully down, attempt to place the thumb safety in the safe up position. The thumb safety should not move into the safe position. Pull the slide forcibly to the rear. The first snap cap should be extracted and ejected. Allow the slide to move forward into battery, thus chambering the second snap cap. Use the thumb and forefinger of the support hand to firmly grip the hammer. Press and release the trigger while holding the hammer. Slowly allow the hammer to fall forward. It should stop at the half-cock safety notch. Pull the hammer to the cock position. Press and hold the trigger while holding the hammer as before. Slowly allow the hammer to fall forward. You may feel the hammer rub against the half-cock notch as it passes it to move fully forward. This is normal. The hammer should not stop at the half-cock point. Cycle the slide one more time to cock the hammer. The second snap cap should be extracted and ejected. Cycle the slide one more time to chamber the last snap cap. Pull the trigger and cycle the slide one more time. The last snap cap should be extracted and ejected, and the slide should lock back on the empty magazine. As a final check, examine the firing pin hole. The firing pin should not be protruding. If any of these steps fail, do not use the firearm. Contact your favorite gunsmith, as you have an unsafe firearm. Today, I look forward to spending quality range time, for the first time, with the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911. I'll run some Agia 180 grain FMJ through it, as well as a few 6-hour Elite Defense B-Crown 180 grain JHP ammunition. That, for me, is my normal defensive ammunition of choice while out and about among the populace. I don't expect to run into a bear, unless the person assaulting me happens to be named Bear in an urban environment that I am normally traveling in. So no bear-rated ammunition will be fired. Not that I have any anyway. I mentioned earlier in the review that I had fired an AF1911 at the Alpha Foxtrot facilities range, but I had no idea of what I was putting through that pistol. Now, at least, I know what I'm putting through it, and can form an opinion on its performance with the chosen ammunition. So, stay tuned, and let's see how we do. Here is a brief synopsis of my range time with the AF1911 DLC. Due to the weight and the 5-inch barrel of the AF1911 DLC, felt recoil was less than expected and less than other 10mm 1911 pistols that I own, and far less than the Glock G20 and Springfield Armory XDM pistols chambered in the same caliber. Due to the unexpected less felt recoil, and with a high handhold on the pistol, the muzzle flip was less than I expected, which helped me get back in alignment with the sights and target quickly. The sights are excellent, but could be a bit larger for my old eyes to acquire them. The green coloring of the sights helped me get back on the target that had a black background. The AF1911 is extremely accurate, and much more accurate than I can be with it. If I were to carry the AF1911 out and about in bear country, you can bet there would be a lot more trigger time, and it would be warranted for me to get as proficient as possible with the pistol. I can't skin a grizz, and I sure don't want one skinning me. Due to hand lapping of the slide to frame, the DLC finish, and some good lubrication where needed, the AF1911 DLC is one smooth operator. The trigger is fabulous without feeling sabulous. The front and rear grip serrations, coupled with the excellent G10 grip texture, help to keep the AF1911 in my hand. My hand has always favored the grip angle and length of the 1911, and the AF1911 did not disappoint. With a gloved hand, the grip surface would be very solid. The Alpha Foxtrot 1911 polished DLC performed without failure, and it is one that I would rely on, bear country or not. So, what are my thoughts on the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 polished DLC in 10mm? Well, let me tell you. A full-size 1911 PDA, Personal Defense Assistant, that is chambered in the powerful 10mm auto cartridge appeals to my survival side, and the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 DLC, polished or not, appeases my appeal. The 4416R stainless steel slide, barrel, and frame is highly desired by me in a defensive firearm. Accentuating the package is the DLC finish, along with an excellent set of sights and a near-perfect trigger. The pros are the DLC finish, the 5-inch DLC finish bushingless bow barrel, the full-length guide rod for smooth operation and accuracy, the perceived low felt recoil qualities of the pistol as compared to other 10mm pistols I have shot, my familiarity with the 1911 platform, and my performance with the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 DLC place that pistol in my high regard category. The cons, and these are personal and are no reflection on the pistol, are the rail, the full-length guide rod, and the difficulty that I experienced when assembling the pistol after performing maintenance on it. I have no use for an accessory rail, but I must admit that using a green laser that I had attached to it made for quick aiming of the pistol possible during the range session. The full-length guide rod contributed to the difficulty in assembling the pistol, although it was not solely the fault of the FLGR. A very heavy recoil spring contributed to the most of the problematic assembly. It takes quite a bit of hand strength and coordination to get the slide into position to insert the slide lock. The fiddling that I had to do to get the slide lock prepared for entry was also problematic. Assembling the AF1911 did test my patience. Fortunately, the AF1911 DLC will be carried more than it will be shot. At around 3 pounds of pistol loaded, the weight of carrying the AF1911 DLC might be cumbersome for most folks. The AF1911 DLC is, after all, a full-fledged fighting pistol. But consider this. A Glock G20 Gen 5 fully loaded weighs 38.8 ounces, or 2 pounds, 6.8 ounces, with 15 rounds of ammunition loaded. The AF1911 DLC, fully loaded, weighs 40.4 ounces, or 2 pounds, 14.6 ounces, with 9 rounds of ammunition loaded. That is nearly 1/2 pound of difference between the two, with the weight advantage going to the Glock G20. What you give up with the Glock G20 in terms of weight is more felt recoil and muzzle rise that affects the ability to get back on target quickly. The added weight of the AF1911 reduces felt recoil and muzzle rise, allowing you to get back on target quicker than with the G20 with increased accuracy to boot. And we know that quick and accurate follow-up shots can be a game changer. Whether for stopping a threat from 4-legged or 2-legged animals, shot placement is key. To those who say a 1911 belongs in antiquity, I'll simply respond with this quote from Chuck Taylor. Quote, "To produce a handgun with better or more practical capabilities will be difficult and perhaps impossible. And I, for one, feel that we can look forward to watching the M1911 continue to dominate the handgun world well into the foreseeable future." Unquote. To this, I agree, and the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 is one that proves it. If you are in the market for a most excellent 1911 and 10mm chambering, the Alpha Foxtrot 1911 just might appeal to you. The AF1911 can also be found in 9mm and 45 ACP chambering, and in 2 finish offerings, polished DLC and matte DLC. Check out the Alpha Foxtrot website to see their 1911 offerings, as well as other pistols and long guns. I have put a link in the description for you. Well, my friends, I have come to the end of this session. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned from it. More gun and gear reviews are in the queue, and I hope that you will join me when they are published. In the meantime, stay safe out there.